Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to GSS Score. This is Ajay and today in the series of Pathways, today we have one of the rankers of UPSC 2019, that is Mr. Shubham Kundal, who is BTech from IIT Delhi, and in his second attempt he has qualified UPSC with All India rank 366. The best part is that he is already in a PSU and he is going to suggest us how a working professional from PSU, from various government sector, from various private sector can manage their study along with the job. So Shubham, first of all, many congratulations from the entire team of GS Score, and thank you for coming here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So Shubham, just tell me, you were already in PSU, also from IIT Delhi. So what was so fascinating about this job that you started preparing for UPSC?
So I joined. I got a campus placement from my college only. I passed out in 2018 and I had a job before I passed out. So I had to take up the job. And what happened is that in my final semester, I had started to toy with the idea of giving the exam. And I told it to my father and he filled my form without even telling me. So, I just sort of went and gave the exam just to please my dad. And I knew I was not going to clear it because, I hadn't even studied. So then I joined the job, and once I joined it, I started realizing, so I work in an oil PSU. And right when I joined, I realized that, one, I think I already was inclined towards civil services in the sense that, it provides you a lot of job diversity and it sort of allows you to, work with people on the ground. But, when I joined the PSU, I felt that I would be restricted to only one field. So since I was in an oil PSU, I would have been restricted in the oil sector only. And that is something which I was not very comfortable with. So, right when I joined, I thought that, there was a 1-month induction program. And after the induction program, I decided that I'll definitely, give civil services another attempt. But what I did not expect was that, I'll sort of get a rank in my, I call it my very first attempt only because, my first attempt was unprepared one. So I didn't expect to get a rank in that. So I guess God must have been very kind for, really helping me out over there.
Thank you, Shubham. Shubham, the people who are basically from working background, they have a dilemma that whether I should leave my job or whether I should prepare for UPSC or whether I should prepare for UPSC along with the job, because leaving the job is a very risky affair here. Fine. So how could you convince yourself that along with the job you had to prepare for these services?
Right. See, I think this is the dilemma which everybody faces. And in fact, I would say not only the ones who are in a job, but also the ones who are not in a job, they also face this dilemma at some point in their UPSC preparation that, is it worth it to, sort of give your everything to this exam itself? But to answer your question specifically about, how a working professional should look at it, let me sort of look at it from this point of view. See, I think the biggest problem which a working professional would find is lack of time. How do you manage your work and this UPSC preparation? So, but on the contrary, the positives of this thing is that if you are working, you're financially independent. So, it's a big mental boost. It's a big mental emotional boost that, even if you don't clear, and everybody knows that this exam is not a test of your knowledge. I mean, there are a million intangibles involved. And even if you're the best person in the world, you might not even get into the list. So there's this cushion which you have that, since you're financially independent, if you don't make it, you have something to fall back onto. That's point number one. I think point number two, and something which is not appreciated by a lot of people, is that if you are working, one way of looking at it is that you don't have enough time. But if you are a person who has a positive attitude towards things, what you'll, another way of looking at it, the constructive way of looking at it is that you will probably be able to manage your time much better. At the end of the day, everybody has those 24 hours, and granted about 12 odd hours are spent at your job. But then it means you will be a much more efficient time manager in the remaining 12 hours. Because I cannot buy this argument that somebody who's not doing a job is actually studying 14, 15, 16 hours a day. And that is not a practical thing to do. Even a normal aspirant, you listen to anybody, they are going to tell you that they study for say 7, 8, 9 hours a day. So if you can sort of, put in your 5 hours, 5 odd hours a day and put those 5 hours sincerely, I think that is equivalent to those 8 or 9 hours, because you have that mental, emotional boost as well, that you're financially independent and, it's okay if you don't make it. And one more thing is that, it really makes you very, very exam oriented. Like you start looking at things see, I don't have as much time as another non job doing aspirant has. So I look at things very objectively. I look at all the issues. I'll do a need to know basis approach kind of a thing. I just read as much as required. Everything I'll start doing a cost benefit analysis. So your analytical skills improve, and you're able to look at things much more objectively. And I think that is something which is not appreciated by a lot of people.
Okay, so you believe that the working people, they are more efficient in comparison to non-working people?
I do believe that.
Yeah. Shubham, just tell me with an example, how means you say that you are very efficient. So what is the meaning of being very efficient? Number one. Number two, you said that your first attempt was non-sincere attempt and second was a sincere attempt. So what is the difference between sincere attempt and non-sincere attempt?
Sure. So the first one you talked about, what do you mean by being efficient? So the way I would define being efficient for a job doing person is that, so for example, we know there are certain topics which are non-negotiable, which one has to do. For example, a Lakshmikant is bread and butter for a UPSC aspirant. So that is something which one cannot miss. But now if we look at certain topics which are not that important, or maybe, which carry much lower weightage. For example, a world history. There's just one question. If one really analyzes the exam well enough, both the pre and the mains, world history is something which carries very little weightage, right? Just one question, 15 marks, which is otherwise also a very random question, a very analytical question. So if I am somebody who knows that I might very well be short of time, I'm going to sort of do a cost benefit analysis that, if there's a question which I can answer, if I can even if I write a below average answer, I'm going to get a 2 or 3 marks out of 15. If I write a very good answer, I'll get 5 marks out of 15, 5.5 maybe. So for 2 marks, am I going to study a 300-page book? No. So similarly, art and culture, or, other things as well. You start to look at things very objectively for all the subjects, including, so for example, in my case, my optional was political science. And I started preparing my optional after the prelims result, because I wasn't expecting that I would be, sort of clearing the prelims. I didn't even put in a lot of thought while filling my optional. So even for my political science optional, I didn't read any book for political science, but simply because I had developed that kind of a mindset wherein, I was able to look at things so objectively that, this is important. This is what is important from an exam point of view. I was able to do it much more efficiently. This is how I look at things. Second, you asked me about the difference between a sincere and a non-sincere attempt. Well, in my case, I think it was non-sincere simply because I was in my final semester and I wasn't even aware when my sort of filled my form. And he just asked me to give the exam. So I was inclined towards giving the exam, but I felt that I should have prepared a little bit more. So it was non-sincere in that sense. But in general, I think non-sincere is when you're simply not committed, when you're doing it for whatever reasons it can be, parental pressure or whatever, for the status or whatever other things it is. A sincere attempt would be the one wherein, you are motivated and you are sort of married to the cause, that is all you want and that is all you can think about. And when you are in that state of mind, it doesn't matter if you're a working professional, if you're not, if you have financial issues, you'll always find a way. So that's the difference between a sincere and a non-sincere candidate to my mind.
Okay, so I'm sure the crux is that before preparing for examination, we should go for a proper research, proper homework, and proper cost benefit analysis. But the thing is, Shubham, that whenever we go to the internet, fine, internet is the only source and the best source nowadays. Whenever we go to the internet and if we type how to prepare for civil services, then we will get thousands of pages. And I believe that qualifying UPSC is like reaching to an island, and there are different ways to reach that island. All toppers, some topper will say that I started writing answer from the day one. Some say that I will start writing after 6 months. So everyone has a different strategy. Fine. So how do we decide that what is best for us, especially when we are completely fresher and we have no idea about the examination? How to decide that?
So I think it's a very valid point which you raised that. The way I look at things is that, there was in 2015 or before that, before this digital revolution, there was lack of information. But now I think the things have reversed in the sense that we are flooded with information and we really don't know what to actually read. And I think every aspirant faces that thing. I personally face the same thing, but I think the way to go about things is, and the wisest thing which one can do is to listen to what the previous year toppers have to say. And this is what I also did. I spent a good 2 months reading their blogs, listening to their talks, stalking them on Quora, trying to talk to them, to really try to understand how they went about things. And once you listen to so many of these toppers, you sort of develop this basic understanding that there are these basic things which everybody does. For example, NCRTs is something everybody reads. Newspaper is something which is a sine qua non. So you develop these basic understandings, but then it is up to you that which topper do you really connect to. So we are all different in where our starting lines are. And as you said, there are a million ways to crack this exam. There is no foolproof way of saying that if you do this, it will definitely work out. And that is the beauty of the exam as well. Nothing is absolutely necessary for the exam, and nothing is useless as well. So once you say that, I connect to this person, or, this is what I feel is the best way to go, then since you know that previous year toppers have done it, they have used this approach, then you sort of really put your faith in whatever you decide you have to do. So for example, if I am reading polity, and if somebody says that I read a D.D. Basu and another person says I read a Lakshmikant, and if I put my faith in Lakshmikant, then Lakshmikant is what I'm married to. Then, that's all I'll read, and that's all I read again and again. Same for all the other subjects. If in history for ancient India, if I choose R.S. Sharma, then that's the book I'll read 10 times, because I cannot be looking at multiple resources, because this is another golden rule of UPSC that, don't look at multiple resources and revise the same thing again and again. So that is why before you choose a book to read, just make sure you research well enough that, that is a book which previous year toppers have used. So it's a good idea to spend significant time on doing this research, to my mind.
Fine. So the crux is that we should, how we should go for research. First, we should listen all the strategy. Then we should come to a common minimum strategy, and then we should execute that. And apart from that, what suits us, that suits us only. That's very different from person to person.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Shubham, now tell me one thing. You have cracked IIT also, and you have cracked UPSC also. So what was the difference in both the examination? Did you find UPSC something which is very different from the other examination, or it is just like all other examination of our country?
Oh, I think, well, the way I would define UPSC is that it's a great equalizer. IIT, not only IIT, in fact, the NEET, PGs and all these exams, they sort of won their objective. There's only a objective, optional, the objective answers you're supposed to solve. So in that sense, there's no subjectivity. But secondly, it requires a certain level of IQ, a certain, mental orientation, in mathematics or in biology, physics and all those things. But when it comes to UPSC, it's such a equalizer, it's such an inclusive examination in the sense that you will find engineering graduates, including myself, taking humanities as their optionals. You will find there are people have this common perception that if you want to prepare for civil services, the humanities background is probably much better. So maybe a bachelor's in history would be a superior choice than say an engineering degree. But UPSC just sort of equalizes that. It just has such a beautiful exam in that sense. The difference, the similarity, which I believe, is that every exam has its particular pattern in which the questions are asked. There are which are manifested in different ways. For example, there are questions repeated in all the examinations. There are patterns repeated in all the examinations. So any examination before we start, this is a common framework which I think everybody must follow, is to really critically analyze the exams, the previous year exams, see what they want and what is it that they are asking. So for example, in a UPSC examination, if one looks at it, say for example, maps is something which is very important. There are a particular type of question which UPSC likes to ask. For example, arrange these things from left to right, arrange it from east to west, which countries border this sea, the bordering countries, which pass through the equator or a Tropic of Capricorn. So the examiner has a particular bent of mind. And there are so many repetitions as well. For example, CRISPR Cas9 was asked in 2018, it was asked in 2019 as well. Even in mains, so much of repetition. And for optional, that's even more applicable. GS is a lot more dynamic, but optionals is so much of repetition. So if one really looks at it, and the same is applicable for IIT JEE or for other examinations as well. If one looks at it, there are clear patterns which emerge. And that sort of helps you to develop a frame of mind, which is required to, which is specific to that examination. So that is a similarity which I feel is common to all the examinations.
Okay, fine. And Shubham, tell me one thing. What was your experience when you jumped directly from this technical background to the world of humanities? Was it easy, or what was your experience?
Right. So, one, I really don't like these hard silos of technical and non-technical. So I come from IIT Delhi, and there's a absolutely very vibrant humanities department in IIT Delhi with excellent teaching staff. So, and we are supposed to take 5 or 6 courses in humanities as well. I went ahead and took 7 or 8 of them. I was very interested. So I wouldn't say I really transitioned from a technical to a non-technical background. And I have been an avid newspaper reader right from start. It has been for the last 4 or 5 years I've been reading newspaper as well. So I wouldn't say that I started from scratch. But yes, it is a transition in the sense that, we engineers, we are used to objectivity, we are used to numericals, we are used to a certain way of writing. Whereas somebody from a humanities background, he's much more subjective in his approach. He's able to critically sort of analyze things in a much better way. But I think that is something which can be developed. And a humanities background there are people from humanities background who come and work in, core mathematics for their higher studies, and vice versa. That is something which can be developed over a period of time. Once one starts reading those basic books, you start appreciating things. And as everybody says, the first 7-8 months of your UPSC journey, that's an enlightenment period. You get to know about so many things, and, which you would have otherwise ignored. And then, there are so many eureka moments for you that, oh, okay, this is how it happened. So it's an enlightenment. And then your thought process also changes, to answer those questions. So I think that's a transition which can happen very easily if one is really committed to transition from one to another.
Okay. Shubham, can you just narrate any of your day along with the job? What was your schedule from morning to night along with the study and job?
Right. So I actually once I'm working in essential services, so it's supposed to be 6 days a week. And there are times when I have to go on Sundays as well, depending on how my boss orders. So there was no certainty in, what would be happening tomorrow. Nevertheless, I was working in shifts. So it was either a shift, which is from morning 6 to 2 p.m. or from 2 to 10. So if I'm in A shift, my typical day would be I'll have to wake up at 5 in the morning, go to my office, 6 to 2 has to be committed to the office, come back by 3, have my food, and get to work till maybe a 1.5 hour study period, then a break, uh, have some food or some snacks, again put in 2 hours, 2.5 hours, uh, have my dinner, try to read a newspaper or, study a little more, maybe till 11:30. So I used to make it a point that, I at least have 5.5 hours of sleep. That was non-negotiable. So till 11:30 or 12 is where I used to stretch it. So, but then there were times when my boss, when I would have to stay back, and that would be, even if half an hour is not enough, is not a large amount of time, but the way it affects you mentally, that, now your entire schedule would be disturbed, is kind of different. But yeah, with time, you sort of learn to cope with it. And then you start becoming much more efficient, as I said. You start looking, you start planning things, you start sort of analyzing that, this is the time I have, so I can't afford a distraction, so I'll not be watching another random YouTube video when I'm studying. So you become more disciplined, and things become a lot more easier with time.
Okay. Did you feel frustration, anguish during the journey? And how did you deal with that?
Well, frustration is a part of the exam. I mean, that's the essential process. Uh, yeah, see, one will be frustrated, and it's okay to be frustrated. But I think what is important is that at the end, sanity should prevail. It's okay if 1 or 2 days you feel low. Maybe you gave a mock test and you scored very low marks. Maybe you haven't been able to deliver the way you wanted to for the past 2-3 days, or anything happens. It can be personal, whatever. What is important is that after those 2-3 days, you are back on track, because then cooler heads have to prevail, that, it is a marathon, and a marathon can only be won if you, keep running. So meditation is something I tried. I used to try to do yoga as well. There was a time when I started becoming really frustrated. I fell back to yoga as well. But yeah, one can do whatever he. So I'm a big cricket fan. So I started playing cricket as well. On Sundays we would play 2020 over 2020 match. So that was a stress buster. So whatever one finds his solace in. But ultimately, one has to be clear that maximum in 3-4 days you have to come back and keep running, because that's the only way out.
Okay. Shubham, when we start preparing for this examination, we have three things in the target. First is prelims, then we have GS mains, and then we have optional. You mentioned that you started preparing for optional after the prelims examination. So what was your strategy for GS mains? Was it segregated, or you went for integrated preparation of both prelims and mains examination?
Right. See, I believe that the preparation essentially is integrated. The only thing which happens is that your mind frame develops, is changed when it comes to pre or mains. Because ultimately, whatever you have read in prelims will help you in mains, and vice versa. So, if I have to go for a prelims exam, obviously I would have done a lot of mock tests before that. So my sort of mind frame would be in an elimination mode, in a analysis mode, to how I can solve the questions. Whereas when I'm in a mains framework, I'll try to look at things from all the different aspects. As they say, a balanced approach, keeping in mind all the social, political, economic, ecological, legal aspects of things. So that is how, to my mind, the things work. It is supposed to be integrated, at least for me. The way I followed things was that I for prelims I was very clear that your knowledge base is not as important as much as that frame of mind is. That elimination, how are you able to eliminate answers? Can you use common sense? Common sense is not very common, and that is something very, very important to be mindful of when giving this exam. So I did a lot of mocks before my prelims. I would have given 40 or 50 mocks, and the books were obviously could have been only so much given the amount of time I had. I read only the basic books, the newspaper, and standard coaching book current affairs compilations, which one can get from anywhere. That's all I read. But then I focused a lot on doing these mocks and seeing where I wasn't doing well. tried to do previous year papers for prelims as well to sort of get an idea that where UPSC likes to play. For example, they like to play with numbers. There was this question in 2018 regarding IR and SS. The distance they would change the money amount. Similarly, there are particular areas which again comes back to analyzing the exam. They'd like to play in certain areas, and then your frame of mind by the time you go to give the exam develops such that you are able to think along those lines, and that really does help in the examination.
Okay, Shubham, thank you very much. I would like to have your last advice to the people who are working in PSUs and all, and they are thinking for UPSC. What's your point of advice? Anything that we have left in the session, you can just say to them.
Look, my only advice is for all the aspirants, especially the ones who are working, is to believe. Because if you believe in yourself, then there's nothing which you can't achieve. And please don't let this thing come in your mind that because you're working, you cannot, really crack this exam. If you're disciplined and if you really believe in yourself, you can definitely crack this exam. As I said, even in my optional, I had just 3 months, and that is even when I was doing a job. Still, I believe that I can do it, and I managed to reading people's notes and whatever. Didn't refer any book, but it's very important to be in that right mental frame. That frame of mind that positive mindset is very, very important, and just keep working hard, and I'm sure success will be yours.
Okay. Shubham, thank you very much for joining us. And from the entire team of GS Score, we wish you all the best for your future. You get everything that you aspire in your life.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.